Okay, so I think we're on the air. Want to thank everyone for joining my session today. My name is Michael Garamoni. I am the manager of workforce development programs at MxD in Chicago, Illinois. Our workforce development team is also known as MxD Learn. The main part of my presentation today is on a project that we completed earlier this year in partnership with ManpowerGroup called the Hiring Guide for Cybersecurity in Manufacturing. I'm also going to give everyone a little bit of an overview about MxD first and some of the work that we do for manufacturers across the United States. This will be my second NICE conference officially. I attended last year in Phoenix as part of our research for the Hiring Guide project. And so it's very exciting to be here presenting to you all today on some of the outcomes and some of the future plans that we have for the work that we did in that project and how it can benefit cybersecurity education. So next slide, please. So start off just with an overview of MxD. As I said, we are a Manufacturing USA Institute. We're one of 14 institutes that I'll talk a little bit more on the next slide. But we are devoted to helping US manufacturers make every part better than the last, with an emphasis at our institute on digital manufacturing, focused on the digital thread, of which cybersecurity is a very important part. So MxD was named by the Department of Defense as the National Center for Cybersecurity and Manufacturing Defense. And it's become more and more a part of what we're doing with both our research and development projects and workforce development and serving manufacturers. Next slide. So MxD, Manufacturing Times Digital, is one of 14 across the network of Manufacturing USA institutes. We are one of 8 that are funded primarily through DoD. Some of the others are funded by Department of Energy, Department of Commerce as well. But we all have a specific technology focus, and we're also very collaborative. So we have similar structures and models across the institutes and how we serve our manufacturing network and partners, but we're each focused on our own technology area, which is very diverse, from ARM in Pittsburgh, that's really the center for innovation in robotics. America Makes is additive and 3D printing. Lift in Detroit is lightweight metals, and all the others. I definitely encourage you to if you're not familiar with the Manufacturing USA network, to look us up. But the work here presented today is done through MxD. We're in Chicago, and while we do focus on regional initiatives and have a lot of regional partners, our work is really, we have a national mandate to help manufacturers across the United States. Next slide. So a brief overview of the Institute. We've been around since February 2014. Our future factory facility is located in Chicago on Goose Island. It is an old window manufacturing complex that was redesigned, LEED certified, and made into the future factory that is now MxD. We were awarded $70 million initially when the Institute was founded. And then we received additional funding in 2019 as part of a renewed contract. That was also when the Institute rebranded. So we were originally the Digital Manufacturing and Design Innovation Institute, which was kind of a mouthful. Moving forward with the renewed funding, we rebranded to become MxD, but continued with the same membership, a lot of the same projects, same structures, and same successes we've had since 2019. As MxD, we've completed several successful projects, including our work in workforce development, which really started with the rebranding. But we collaborate with over 300 members across the nation, anchored by the government and DoD in particular. We also have global connections and international partners. We've completed over 60 projects in R&D, collaborating with teams across government, industry, and academia in applying advanced technologies to some of the problems that manufacturers are facing. There's definitely a lot of focus on supply chain, and while we do have some big players that are involved in a lot of our projects, we try to create outcomes that can be disseminated out to small and mid-sized manufacturers, small businesses, and community partners as well, and making sure that we're serving everyone across the ecosystem and supply chain. And as I mentioned, our facility is known as the Future Factory. There's some really great displays and showcases in our facility. Normally we have over 11,000 visits annually. We've shifted in 2020. We've become very virtual and have been doing some really great webinars and virtual events. But we are a critical industry, and the factory is still open. And hopefully that we'll begin resuming some of our events and tours at the facility soon, so that when you come to Chicago, you can check it out. We have test beds on digital manufacturing. We have cybersecurity demonstration test beds on different aspects of implementation across both discrete manufacturing, part making, and process manufacturing, which is more of the continuous manufacturing process that some partners like Dow or food manufacturers might employ. So lots of cool things to see at MxD if you ever get a chance to come visit. Next slide. So I'm going to focus on MxD Learn, which is our workforce division, but we also do have a cyber division that's engaged in some projects more technology focused in the cybersecurity area. So I wanted to point that out. As I mentioned, we're doing a lot of outreach to small and mid-sized manufacturers because that's a key focus on securing the supply chain. We work with University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign through their Critical Infrastructures Resilience Institute in creating a dashboard for cybersecurity compliance that manufacturers and other organizations across critical infrastructure can use to manage kind of the growing need to become compliant, especially with DoD contracts, as some of those requirements through CMMC, DFARS are continue to be enhanced. So we do have programs to support manufacturers in those areas as well. Next slide. But the focus today, as I said, is on our workforce development, which is MxD Learn. We are engaged in collaborating across our network to create education and training programs for both digital and cybersecurity manufacturing applications. Everything we do is led by industry and kind of validated and reviewed by industry. So we make sure that there's industry involvement in our projects from the very beginning, and have a lot of opportunities to collaborate with them and make sure that what we're doing responds to their needs, but also driven by community and responding to the needs of our community, and especially underserved students working in various areas of the United States, but even in our own region, doing some things with a lot of community organizations in Chicago and Illinois and Indiana to make sure that as we uncover some of these innovative technologies and opportunities in digital and cybersecurity, that what we're doing in workforce is reaching all of our neighbors and the future workforce especially, and making sure that they're aware of these opportunities, that they're accessible, that there are pathways built in to make sure that the workforce stays resilient in the face of these changes. Next slide. So some of the key statistics that are driving the need and opportunity for the work we do at MxD Learn. One is the skills gap. So there are there's an anticipated 2.4 million US manufacturing jobs expected to go unfilled over the next decade due to a skills shortage. So how do we meet that demand and make sure we're providing students skills? It's an added challenge that 65% of those jobs don't even exist today. So we're trying to fill a skills gap when some of the jobs, at least kind of in the bigger picture, remain somewhat unknown. And especially among students, to create awareness and encourage consideration of the opportunities that the future of manufacturing might present for them. And that's also responding to the need of manufacturers themselves, in that they identify attracting a skilled workforce as their single greatest challenge. So workforce is something more and more we're hearing about with all of our projects and all of our government contracts and different programs. Is, you know, that's great to be exploring this technology and uncovering new innovations, but what does it mean for the workforce? How do we make sure that we're addressing workforce in this work? And how do we make sure that that's accessible? So, and again, the last stat really focuses on those SMMs. That a vast majority, really, of U.S. manufacturers are small businesses employing 20 or fewer people. So they don't have the resources to kind of access some of this technology and some of the professional development and training that the bigger companies do. So we definitely make sure, as a vital aspect of our supply chain, that we're addressing that need as well. Next slide. So quick overview, and I'm going to get into more of how our work with the Cybersecurity for Manufacturing hiring guide is informing some of these programs. But beyond just the work that we did with that project, we support a curriculum for high schools and community colleges that we've piloted already in the Chicago region. We're working right now with the University of Maryland, Baltimore County on a Cybersecurity for Manufacturing OT curriculum, building off of some of their foundational cyber courses and certifications that they offer in their continuing education department. We've taken some of the outputs from our work at MxD in adapting that to the operating technology environment. We're focused on building pathways. So we received a grant from the Siemens Foundation to build out pathways and workforce programming in cybersecurity for manufacturing. So some of the future work we're going to be doing with the hiring guide is built from the Siemens Foundation. And we're raising awareness. So the Flex Factor program is a Shark Tank style competition for high school students that we're adapting from another Manufacturing USA Institute, NextFlex, in expanding awareness of these future opportunities. Next slide. So now to get to the hiring guide, really the focus of my presentation today. This is a resource that is available for free on our website. There will be a link at the end of the presentation. But as I mentioned, myself and a partner from ManpowerGroup, who we worked with very closely on the development of this project, attended the NICE conference last year and made some really great connections, got some really great resources, and kind of building out some of the initial research framework for this project. We conducted the project in building the hiring guide over about 9 months, and it was released just in August of this year. So it's still pretty hot off the presses. And as I said, it's available for free on the MxD website. It builds off of another taxonomy that MxD and Manpower collaborated on in 2017, which was the Digital Manufacturing and Design Jobs Taxonomy, which identified the emerging roles and success profiles and pathways for some of the jobs in digital manufacturing and design. In that project, which is also available on our website, there were 8 cybersecurity roles identified, and from the DoD and from industry and from education as well. The need was expressed to spend more time focusing specifically on cyber and using that same framework that we did with the jobs taxonomy in addressing the need and opportunity for cyber and manufacturing. Next slide. So our project started with really identifying the drivers. What is happening in the manufacturing ecosystem that drives the need for enhanced cybersecurity and an enhanced cybersecurity workforce. So this kind of outlines some of those drivers that we identified with collaboration from representatives across industry, across government, NIST and NICE, which I'll talk to a little bit more. But we had a lot of input, we had a lot of review and contribution in across the project. But initially, our goal was to identify some of the drivers. So the point is that manufacturing is increasingly a target for cyber attacks. It's the most targeted industry in the country for cyber threats. And as we saw with the pandemic, the vital importance of manufacturing in national defense and security can't be understated. So there's a great need there to look at the role cyber plays in securing our defense industrial base. And especially with more facilities, more data, more companies going digital, more advanced technology in the factory, a cyber attack could have a bigger impact, a worse impact potentially. And so this is something that we definitely want more manufacturers thinking about. We look at cyber as a holistic kind of skill set, and the roles that we focused on in the report are spanning across IT. So while there's a lot of resources out there focused on kind of the IT side of cyber, we tried to look at it holistically, and how are people on the factory floor involved in cybersecurity? How do we ensure business alignment and legal considerations and financial considerations, workforce recruiting? All of those things were kind of incorporated in a holistic view. Looking at alignment across industry and across governance boards. The convergence of IT and OT was a critical point of concern and work in what we put together in our report, and especially important to manufacturing, which is really central to driving the importance of IT OT is machines and factory equipment that are now connected and now storing data and now potentially vulnerable to cyber attacks. So that convergence was really important. Also important was the opportunity that manufacturers see that MxD actually encourages of retrofitting legacy machines and building new infrastructure, and the cyber considerations there. We looked at the product life cycle, making sure that things are designed securely. So not just the protection of the manufacturers and their factories and their workers themselves, but also in the products that they're creating, and what role does cybersecurity create from a consumer safety perspective, from a consumer security perspective, and who's responsible for some of that. And kind of going back to what I said, help and hinder is referring to the opportunities that digital can provide in improving cybersecurity, but also addressing what those vulnerabilities are. And how are we creating more opportunities for bad actors in attacking us, and how do we protect against that? Privacy and zero trust. So intellectual property and privacy is just a continuously growing concern. And we looked at making sure that we're promoting a culture of resiliency as people and processes and organizations transform. How do we align those transformations around common goals and values specifically related to cyber? Next slide. As well as with those drivers, we also looked at future horizons for technology and manufacturing and how that shaped the roles. So we considered most of these in where we're at with manufacturing and how these are going to play a part. Some of them are addressed more directly in the hiring guide than others. Some are still a little bit too far out that nobody in our circle of reviewers thought that there was a lot to consider with these, but we do have roles addressing pretty much all of these areas of future horizons, and the people within a manufacturer who are the ones to consider cybersecurity if some of these technologies are adopted moving forward. And it also creates the opportunity for continued work with what we're doing and continued build outs of the roles identified. Next slide. So another important foundational goal with our research into the hiring guide was looking at the existing resources, especially the NIST and NICE frameworks, speaking to cybersecurity and manufacturing. What are they addressing? What do they provide? And how are we doing something different? So included in the report, we provided this table that kind of outlines the differences here. We definitely were heavily informed by the NIST wheel, and specifically the NIST manufacturing guidelines that points out how to apply the NIST wheel step by step in a manufacturing environment. And then we used the NICE framework as well in looking at what are these roles that are identified, what are some of the competencies and KSAs, and what's missing here from a manufacturing perspective, and what gaps do we really need to fill, and how are we communicating the outputs of this project in a way that are specifically addressed to the needs of manufacturers. Next slide. And then we looked at job design changes overall on the individual level, and kind of the experiences and skills that are being looked for, the soft skills, the less quantifiable skills beyond just credentials and degrees, but general trends in the workforce and those job design changes that we're seeing. And how do they apply to cyber, and how do they apply to manufacturing in specific? So those slides really provide an overview of some of the preliminary research and some of the preliminary perspectives that informed the outputs of the hiring guide. Next slide. So then our next step was to start and divide the manufacturing ecosystem and addressing the different areas where cybersecurity roles would be of importance. And this is really kind of taking the NIST and NICE frameworks and putting them through these manufacturing specific hubs into our own kind of manufacturing cybersecurity framework. And so these were the hubs that were identified with our partners in our project. That are unique or have unique implications for the manufacturing ecosystem. As I mentioned, chemical and mechanical process safety is kind of its own unique hub that's different from a lot of environments. Risk management, supply chain, so a lot of focus from our tier 1 and tier 2 partners, our big industrialists on, we have a pretty good cybersecurity plan in place, but what's really important to us with this work is how do we make sure that our suppliers also have access to some of these resources and opportunities. As I mentioned, IT/OT integration is of utmost importance, protecting citizens and community privacy, making sure that there's security across the Internet of Things through secure product design, and on top of kind of retrofitting and adjusting existing factory equipment and machines for cyber and digital, also looking at the future and developing cybersecure IT/OT integrated systems and the engineering processes that go along with that. So next slide. So with all of that work, with all of kind of that preliminary research as a framework for the development of the hiring guide, this is what ended up being the key outputs of what the guide provides, and where we're starting kind of in our next phase of work. But the outputs here, first we'll start with our community of roles. Across the different domains of the manufacturing environment, we identified 247 job roles that include considerations for cybersecurity and manufacturing. Roles that include roles where at least 25% of a job is directly cybersecurity related were made onto the list. So there are 247 roles that we identified there. Everything from systems analysts to manufacturing cybersecurity operator on the more technical side, several engineering roles, but also, again, some of those non-technical domains, including business and legal specialists, compliance specialists, up to the C-suite. So we did kind of outline and define and group CISO positions and some emerging leadership roles that are being created specific to manufacturing through cybersecurity. We defined some of our ecosystem connections. So we looked at industry, academia, government, workforce and community development agencies, and the individuals themselves, and identified what are some of the connections that exist in cybersecurity, what are some of the resources, how do these different entities across the ecosystem work together. So that was a really helpful exercise in kind of plotting out and looking forward to some of the work that we want to do in the future with this project, and how these different organizations and entities might support each other in achieving some of these goals. And then from the roles and ecosystem and connections, we developed 3 other outputs that really speak to people on the ground, whether that be workers and students, or counselors and teachers, or HR departments and workforce planners. So we identified 4 personas where we kind of wrote bios of 4 different people who might be approaching this hiring guide with different experiences and different skills, and what they might be looking for and what they might be bringing to the table. So Joaquin there, for example, is an experienced mechanical engineer. He's been in manufacturing for over 25 years, and he's looking at some of the emerging trends and what that could mean for him. So we kind of describe Joaquin a little bit. We also created a persona for a recent college graduate, for a mom returning to the workforce, and for a veteran, and what they might consider when looking at some of these opportunities. From there, we also outlined 8 career paths. So we identified entry points, whether those be actual entry-level job roles or more experienced ones, but taking those roles and kind of linking them through the progression into what might be next for them, with information on the certifications and education experiences that they might need to achieve to move forward in that pathway, some of the salary expectations that they might expect as they move forward in that pathway, and some other considerations. So the career paths have been expressed. It's been expressed to us by especially community college partners and other partners that those are a valuable resource in kind of mapping out not just what the roles are, but how they progress and how they create lifelong opportunities for people interested in this field of work. And then the success profiles are really where we provide a deep dive, deep definitions and descriptions of individual roles. So as I mentioned, we had 247 roles named in the community, so 247 roles listed. Initially with the project, we only did 3 success profiles. So here you can see a little picture of the secure design product lifecycle manager. We also did the IT/OT integration engineer and the supply chain compliance manager role, where we provided a detailed description. We listed competencies and KSAs, a lot of what's drawn from similar roles or aligning roles in the NICE framework. We identified education and certification requirements that people might want to consider. Some people like to call the success profiles more like job descriptions, because they really are. They're a full job description, and there's 3 out of 247, so we have opportunity to build out a lot more. One thing I should mention, though, we like to call the success profiles job descriptions, but of course the roles, the way we identified them was in that we wanted to make sure that they're distinct from jobs. So we emphasized the difference between roles and jobs in the report, and the reason for that being is that since our manufacturing ecosystem has such diverse organizations of different sizes with different needs, you know, a big employer, Boeing or Lockheed Martin, for example, might take this success profile verbatim and say, yeah, we need to hire a secure design product lifecycle manager right away, and you know, we're gonna use this full job description for what we're looking for. But a small or mid-sized manufacturer that doesn't have the resources to do that might take several of these roles and combine them into different jobs, or they might take certain aspects of these roles and tack them on to other existing jobs that they already have in addressing their cybersecurity strategy. So the roles and jobs are not necessarily synonymous, and we designed it that way for a little bit of flexibility in adaptation to the needs of a specific organization. So next slide. So the hiring guide, as I said, was published in August, and we've already started phase 2 with additional work. And since we only have 3 success profiles published at the moment, the first thing we're doing is building more success profiles and career pathways, since we have a lot of roles left to choose from and work with. So we received funding from the Siemens Foundation to build out these additional roles. We're continuing to collaborate with partners in holding design sessions and gathering input and addressing and identifying needs and challenges, and selecting roles that have, you know, importance to different audiences. So we do want to include more entry-level roles. We want to look at roles that might be good alignment to apprenticeship opportunities or community college program opportunities. We're also looking too at some of the interesting and emerging new technologies like AI and cloud computing and 5G and those kinds of things. So we're moving forward. We do want to continue building out this work, and we have a lot of space left to continue creating new and exciting information and resources for our partners. So next slide. So again, we show this slide to some of our industry partners in identifying the different domains, and looking at, you know, which of these domains in your organization is important to building your cybersecurity strategy, and how can we help you with resources in addressing the cybersecurity needs across these different domains. So of course, a lot of work being done in OT and IT, but also kind of expanding into supply and business, governance. And we're asking educational partners too about this, you know, like, is cybersecurity, workforce education and development important consideration for business students potentially? Is it an important consideration for law students? Are there certain aspects of career opportunities in those different disciplines that we might be looking to address in some of our work moving forward? Next slide. And we've already started our first project applying some of the outputs of the hiring guide to curriculum development. The first project is a course that we're developing with University of Maryland, Baltimore County. We received a grant through the Office of Economic Adjustment to create this curriculum. We're taking a foundational cyber curriculum and adapting it to the operating technology environment. The grant is gonna fund a cohort of current workers from industry to kind of go through and take competency-based assessments, and then we're using algorithms to customize the learning content and some of the course outcomes with the results from those competency-based assessments. So that project just got started, and we're already kind of employing the hiring guide in real life out in the field. So pretty excited about that. Next slide. And so that concludes my slide presentation. I encourage you, if you're interested, to check out the hiring guide for yourself. It's available for free on our website. You do have to put in your email. We're gating it, but once you download it, it's free to share. We're also continuously updating the hiring guide. So each time we add a new success profile or career pathway, we're updating it right to the site. So we're already on our second edition with some added content that we just put up recently. And we're always looking for opportunities to collaborate with partners on some of the work that we've done. So that is my supervisor, Lizabeth Stuck. If you are interested or have a project that you think might benefit from some collaboration here, please feel free to reach out, and we'd love to get in touch. So I think we have a few minutes left for Q&A. Oh, so my contact information. Yes, I can do that. So I can either type answers to the audience or I can announce them either way, but. Any other questions? I will say that, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, can you include the link for the guide in the Q&A too?
Absolutely. It's a great idea. And if you have a chance, if you get to our site and check out the hiring guide, you can also find some resources on, we've created a webinar library now since we've moved all of our events online. We've been recording them, and so there's a great webinar library of what we've done throughout 2020. Normally we have at our Future Factory, we have all kinds of events and meetings from generals getting together to discuss strategy and CEOs and executives across industry to summer camps and Girl Scout troop tours and all those things. So it's been sad a little bit in not having access to the Future Factory and bringing in all of those groups. But as an innovator, we've adjusted pretty well, and we've done a lot to support our partners, including in some of the webinars we did. So there is a webinar up there that's actually on the hiring guide. If you're interested to check out, when we first released it, we held a webinar with our CEO, Chandra Brown, and Rebecca Kowalski. She's the Vice President of Manufacturing at ManpowerGroup. And then Kurt John is the CISO for Siemens USA. And Siemens was very involved in the project. And so those three spoke to the hiring guide very well. And that webinar is available. And then there's lots of other information on some of our cybersecurity programming, some of our educational programming. So definitely encourage you to check that out, as well as the work of some of the other institutes, because they're also doing some really cool things, but we're kind of the ones leading the charge in the cybersecurity space for manufacturing. I'm happy to hang out and just, if anyone can think of questions or come up with something. I was a little bit worried I would go over, so I'm glad we still have time at the end. I guess maybe then I'll ask a question to the audience. The slide with the question of what domains would you like to see more resources on for the cybersecurity workforce? That's when we ask of our industry partners, but just generally, you know, is legal and compliance in manufacturing cybersecurity of interest to you, or really should we continue looking at the new technologies in IT, OT space? So if anyone has thoughts on that, of what you would like to see, I'd love to hear about that. Another thing I will say is, coming from being at the NICE conference last year and knowing that it's kind of a broad audience focused on education in lots of different contexts, MxD Learn kind of reflects that, that we have programs offered for everything from high school students to, you know, incumbent workers to veterans. We're spending a lot of time on apprenticeship. So we're working with a community college right now on the Siemens Foundation provided funding to support advanced manufacturing apprenticeships. And those are primarily, their curriculum right now is aligned to automation, robotics, and mechatronics. And then they also have cybersecurity apprenticeships that are completely separate. And so our idea that we're trying to work with them on is there an opportunity to, or is there a need, if we place cybersecurity apprentices in a manufacturing context, is there certain coursework or content that would be beneficial to those students? So either infusing cybersecurity curriculum with manufacturing specific content, or vice versa, infusing like a welding program or a CNC program or CAD or something like that with cybersecurity considerations. Is that a benefit to the workforce? So that's actually a really fun question and challenge that we're working with the community college on. And MxD is just in a unique place to kind of address that, because it's otherwise often so siloed, in that, you know, you either do cyber or you do manufacturing, and you know, where's kind of the link, and what's kind of the integration, both for those students, but also, you know, as they grow in their careers, how is this going to benefit? And you know, the thing with cyber is that it's becoming so much more pervasive, and I know that was spoken to in the keynote, that cybersecurity is just becoming an everyday part of life in all different kinds of jobs. And you know, when do we get to the point where employers identify cybersecurity skills and knowledge as kind of essential regardless of their role? And how do we make sure that we're providing, you know, that learning and accessibility to our students, that it's not just an IT thing anymore. It's something that should be more broad and available to all different disciplines. So if anyone has any comments or questions after today, please reach out. I'd be happy to talk more, and look forward to working with you and attending the rest of the conference.